Hello, it's Sunday, it's 8 p.m, and yes, welcome to The Business. I'm Trevor Merriden with the show that's essential listening for the West Herts business community. A very special show for January. What will make your business bulletproof in 2014? What's in the DNA of the best operators out there? We'll be looking at all the magic ingredients by talking to those who know, the stars of the most prestigious business event in the county, the Hertfordshire Business Awards held at the end of last year. What better way to prepare for the year ahead than listening to those who did the business last year? Our special studio guest will be Neil Kirby, Chief Encourager and Coach of the Red Rubber Ball Company, a very different kind of coaching company. In the early part of the show, Vicky Scott will find out what makes Neil's red rubber ball bounce before he teams up with our very own Roma Bhowmick to review the clips and tips from the very best businesses in Hertfordshire. But first of all, I'd like to introduce, as always, Vicky Scott and Roma Bhowmick. How are you this evening?
Very well indeed, thanks, Trevor.
Good, thanks.
Okay, I saw you wincing at my little red rubber ball bounce thing going on there. I'm sorry about that. I couldn't resist that. But so what's caught your eye, Vicky, this week?
Well, the first thing I'm really delighted to hear is just in the news that caffeine's actually quite good for your memory. Because
that's wonderful, isn't it?
I desperately need some help with my memory. Well, the second thing is, in very definite keeping with the Scott and Hewitt traditions over Christmas of spending far too much time in bars, pubs and all manner of drinking establishments, I was completely and utterly amazed, and I brought it in with me here today, to see in the pub in my mother's village in Oxfordshire, beer mats. A bright and breezy beer mat campaign suggesting that you choose well against a range of ailments. And this is a beer mat that's sponsored by the National Health Service. And
right.
Here it is, as you can see. So
okay,
everything from a sore throat all the way through to severe chest pain.
Okay, we'll take a photo of this and maybe put it on Twitter or something.
I know
yes.
it's radio. But it really astounded me because, as a marketing person, I find it very difficult to wander around without noticing people's advertisements and how people are promoting themselves. And, one of the things that's always really important is that you focus on target audiences and you get the messages clear and, that you get the right channel in order to make sure that your message hits home. And I'm really not sure about this one. We hear all the time on the news that the waiting rooms and the hospitals are full of the same people who return time and time again. And I just thought, wouldn't they be far better communicating with those people actually within those environments, possibly with nurses on site sort of redirecting traffic, rather than advertising in pubs? It just didn't seem to sort of strike home for me. I don't know whether you can imagine sort of looking at a beer mat whilst you're swigging your beer and thinking, oh, yes, that's the sort of thing that I need to do if I've got a sore throat.
I know. It's a bit of a... It's a bit of sort of a paradox, isn't it? I think. Roma, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I'm not convinced either, Vicky. I think you're right to question that one. I don't know that I'd even bother noticing it, actually. I think you were very observant.
Too busy with the gin and tonic.
In you. Yeah, exactly. Sloshing it all over the beer mat, actually.
Well, let's see how the National Health Service get on with that one. But, I'm sure there ought to be better ways to spend their money. Or our money, come to mention it.
Actually, I was going to do my one last, but I'm going to break with tradition this time. And actually, seeing as we're talking about health and so on, I'll talk about my one. Workers in the UK take an average of 5 days off work each year, with stress, anxiety and depression given as the main causes of absence. Now, of course, we all know that stress can reduce our immune systems and make ourselves more susceptible to very serious illnesses, and it's costing a lot of money. And there's been a sort of a plethora of sort of technological devices to actually monitor how stressed we are, all sorts of things that we can use to measure employee stress levels. Using, for example, I never thought I'd say this on the radio, portable saliva testing machine that can give us accurate reading in minutes rather than hours in a laboratory. And once we know an employee's stress, says the sponsor of the survey, we can put interventions in place.
What's the link between saliva and stress then?
I don't know. Maybe you just produce more of it.
I think you
I'm
produce certain enzymes, don't you? Not that you're the biochemist.
Yeah,
Come on, woman.
But enzymes are largely to do with in your mouth. They're largely to do with digestion.
I know.
So
I think they can tell.
I don't know.
It's a strange thing to do anyway, though, isn't it? Can you imagine? You look stressed. Let's just measure it. Spit here.
Oh my God, you're really stressed. That's really going to help, isn't it?
This is exactly the point. I think technology, a wonderful thing. You can't knock technology, but really, I think we should be focusing a bit more on what's actually causing the stress in the first place, the angry boss or the, or the unreasonable workload, that sort of thing. I mean, and it's as most, large businesses offer some form of stress and anxiety counselling, but it's all about treating the symptoms. And this is what's sort of bothering me about this. The more we focus on technology, the more it's telling me that we're only reporting systems, and what we need is good old-fashioned human common sense and preventative measures, for business. If business really wants to save that sort of 1.4 billion, then I think that actually prevention really is better than cure.
It's really pleasing actually that we've got Neil Kirby on a little later, because with his mentoring and coaching business, he really approaches things in a very different way, and a lot of it's about making sure that you're living the life that you want to live, and managing that work-life balance and making sure that you understand what creates stress in you and how you manage it and all of those sorts of things. So it all fits in very, very nicely, this healthy New Year programme that we're running.
If only we'd actually planned it this way.
Yeah.
But, Roma, what have you seen in the news?
Well, New Year's resolutions, we all make them, don't we?
Yes.
Have you made resolutions, you two?
I gave up making resolutions a few years ago.
Mine's dry January, which is it's quite doable but very boring. And I just and I went to a party the other night, and actually I found that most of the other people were doing dry January as well.
Oh.
And I don't know. I suppose the thing is that you kind of I actually found the level of the conversation. No disrespect to anybody listening, but I didn't really enjoy it that much. I think I didn't find my own humour as funny as normal, or anybody else's for that matter.
It's a bit of a strange thing to do, to have a party in January, isn't it?
Well, especially if you're not going to drink.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So well, obviously we're all keen to make New Year's resolutions, and one thing's for sure: with the dawning of the new year, certainly in the context of business, it's a guru's favourite time, and the internet seems to be awash with helpful tips for small business owners. So, what should the high street business owner make of the annual flood of articles prescribing New Year's resolutions to small business owners? Here's some advice, I guess you could call it, having just knocked the people that give it. It's hard to go wrong with easily achievable resolutions offered by the National Federation of Independent Businesses, which suggests that the New Year is a good time for routine maintenance. It shouldn't take much time to make insurance coverage, corporate records or employee documents up to date. You might as well schedule a dental cleaning and an oil change while you're at it. Meanwhile, it's a good idea to rethink your website or conduct a cybersecurity audit, but keep perspective. You won't suddenly have more time to increase your social media presence in as the calendar turns, but it's worth noting that many of the experts dispensing resolutions at this time of year are entrepreneurs hoping to promote their own services. So as research shows, in January, it's actually the worst month to try and change your behaviour. You'd be better off doing it in August. So the best thing to do is focus on a bit of housekeeping, which certainly won't hurt, but certainly be careful of trying to turn your business upside down, which is a thing that, as I say, when I was looking at some of the stories that are out there at the moment, you have got all these campaigns to encourage you to make huge sweeping changes to your business.
Little steps.
Yeah. I think that's a classic, that sort of rethink your website. So many people that I work with have been told that, believe that if they've got a new website, then they're going to get business. And actually, it's very unlikely that that's how it's going to work. The chances are that the reason why the website isn't pulling in business is because they've got messaging wrong. They don't know how. They don't know what they're offering. Yeah. The way that you navigate through it. All of those sorts of things. The messages just aren't clear, and it's nothing to do with the website itself. It's to do with the actual business that's not clarified.
Yeah. I mean, to me, I lots of little steps, but I read that 88% of New Year's resolutions fail, and despite the fact that 52% of people believe that they will succeed at the time they make them, which makes me think 48% of people make resolutions knowing full well they won't keep them, but
they feel good about it.
But they feel good about the actual act of making them. Right, that's brilliant. We're going to come back with Neil Kirby from the Red Rubber Ball Company. I'm going to muck that up before the end of the show, and after these messages.
Hi, this is Danny Smith. Join me weekdays from 4 till 7 p.m. for West Hart's Drive Time, with features including Chris's Film Club, Pound Saver, Community Notice Board, Calendar Artist, Hot Topics and many more besides. We also feature correspondence covering topics such as lifestyle, consumer advice, cooking, interior design and travel. We have regular interviews, local news and sports, celebrity birthdays, travel and traffic updates and competitions as well. That's all on West Hart's Drive Time with me, Danny Smith, on 92.6 FM, Radio Verulam.
Mount Carmel Kindergarten.
Has your child outgrown day nursery? Would you like them to attend a more structured environment with a wide range of interesting and challenging activities?
I like cooking stuff with Mrs. Federici.
Mount Carmel Kindergarten in Sandpit Lane is now offering extended sessions, so even if you work, your child can enjoy an outstanding environment that prepares them for school and is somewhere they will want to go to every day.
I like playing games. I love my teachers.
For more, see our website at mountcarmelkindergarten.co.uk. Mount Carmel Kindergarten, private education for little people.
Mount Carmel Kindergarten.
You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. We're the voice of the local business community on 92.6 FM and on radioverulam.com.
It's coming up to 14 minutes past the hour now, and we've got our big interview. Vicky, who have we got?
So welcome to Neil Kirby, the I'm going to say MD of the Red Rubber Ball Company, but that's completely wrong, isn't it? You are the chief encourager of the Red Rubber Ball. You'll have to tell us more about that in a minute. You're going to stay in the studio with us for most of the rest of the show, which is fantastic. So thank you very much for doing that. And a very happy New Year. Oh, and something just crashed on the floor. Don't worry about that. Now, I just happen to know that the Red Rubber Ball Company comes from a book that was written, I believe, by Kevin Carroll. I found the book, having met you, you put me onto the book. It was a fabulously inspirational book, and I would recommend everybody and anybody read it. But please tell everybody out there who hasn't come across it a little bit more about it, its inspiration, and then why you chose it as the name for your company.
So we came across it about 2009, I think, and I'd been in professional development, personal development for many years. I started around sort of 99, 2000, and it was a book I hadn't come across. And like many people, I guess, I had books on my shelves, some of which I'd read, some of which had never really got beyond the first few pages and had kind of sat there. Good books, but ones that I just never really kind of got into. And I picked up the Rules of the Red Rubber Ball, and I read it within about 20 minutes. And it's a beautifully produced, again,
yes,
you know yourself.
It's absolutely beautiful.
It's just stunning production. Very easy to read.
It's a printer's sort of nightmare and also delight. Really,
yes, it must cost a
It's
fortune. I don't know how they make money at it, because it is just every page is different.
Yeah.
And when I read it, it's very simple messages. It's you mentioned Kevin Carroll, the author. It's his personal story, and he just talks about his life and how he's achieved from very humble and very difficult beginnings. And when I finished reading it, I just came away, and there were very much messages that we were talking to clients about anyway. And we were looking to set up a new business at the time. We got in contact with Kevin, and through meeting with him and reading the book, we used that as an inspiration for setting up the business. And we like the whole image of the red rubber ball. And I was laughing at you talking about bouncing the ball and things like that. And in many ways, that's one of the beautiful things, because everybody, or many people, have aspirations. They have kind of hopes and dreams. And the red rubber ball, if you like, is one of those, the kind of dreams that we have. And what we're really trying to do is encourage people to chase those and follow those. So the ball is just a beautiful image, really, that we like to use.
And so, in principle, it's a coaching company.
Mm-hmm.
Just very quickly, because it crops up all the time, just explain the difference between coaching and mentoring and training. I mean, people make a big deal about the differences. So, to us simpletons, just tell us how it works.
Yeah, I guess I don't know how important it is, the difference between the two, or the two or three or four of them in many ways, in that for me, clients never the clients I have, I don't think they care whether it's coaching or mentoring or counselling or whatever. I think there are many things that could come into that. I look at it and think, so for me, coaching fits somewhere between, you've got therapy at one end and business consulting at the other end, which is, for me, is much more around strategy and advice. And coaching is somewhere in the middle of those. And depending on the issues that I might be talking to clients about, some conversations are closer to the therapy end, because people want somebody to talk to, and they really just want to kind of almost unburden some of the things that are on their mind.
They want someone to bounce off.
Yeah,
they want to
absolutely.
Bounce their ball off you.
Yeah, and it is, and I think the beauty of it is because an external coach is independent. My agenda is whatever they particularly want, the person I'm talking to at the time. My intent is purely for their benefit. So I don't have a hidden agenda within an organisation.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to get them to do things that I want them to do. It's really just helping them achieve the things they want.
Do you think that it takes a quite enlightened manager or director to employ a company like the Red Rubber Ball, who are clearly coming at coaching or training from a slightly different angle? Does it take a sort of slightly different type of step of faith and confidence?
I think an organisation or the individual has to be prepared. They have to be open-minded, and I think they have to want it to succeed. Because I think I've certainly been on training courses before where people have been booked on the course just because somebody thought that was what they should do, and in many ways it was a bit of a get out. We thought, well, as long as we book them on a course, then we've done our bit, and then
sort of HR ticking boxes.
Yeah,
almost.
and I think a lot of those days in many organisations have gone. But I think the thing about coaching is that there's nowhere to hide, because again, I sit down with clients, whether it's for half an hour or longer, and it's just mostly the two of us in a room, and we've got a confidentiality agreement so that we can have that very open and honest conversation. But people can't, again, careful with my language, but they can't bullshit, because A, they're only bullshitting themselves, but also if I hear them coming up with certain excuses, they can only use them once, and then and quite often you just almost look somebody in the eye, because you know when they're kind of telling you a story, if you like.
Have you had any sort of tricky moments where people have realised that they're telling complete fabricated stuff, and you've questioned them on it, and they sort of get cross with themselves about it?
Yeah, and sometimes they might get cross with me as well for noticing it.
Yeah.
But I think it's that thing about being honest with ourselves, because we all will tell. I think quite often we have two stories. We have a story that we tell other people, which is a kind of a sanitised version that makes us look good. And then we have a story that we're probably the one that's going around in our own minds sometimes, that we're telling ourselves about maybe why things are not going the way we want, or we're not achieving certain targets.
And it does sound as though you tend to work with senior management, or even just the owners. It needs to be people right at the sort of top level that
it tends to be. And I think because many years ago I used to do a lot of training within organisations, and I think one of the things that frustrated me at the time was I felt that people would come along on the training, very well-meaning, hopefully learn something from it, go back to their organisation, and then get frustrated because they didn't have the opportunity to actually do what they'd learned. And I think when I first came across coaching, for me it was an opportunity that rather than working with lots of people training, working with one or two people, particularly senior people in an organisation, could have a much bigger impact.
Yeah. And I mean, I know this is how long is a piece of string, but how long does it take for people to change behaviours and to see that behavioural changes filtering through into their businesses, into their lives, and see results? I mean, can it work really quickly, or is it a long term? Is it
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is that kind of. You're right to say how long is a piece of string, in that I've certainly had clients and seen situations where people have had those kind of light bulb moments where they've made very, very fundamental changes to their life within seconds.
Yeah.
That quick. And again, I remember a client of mine many years ago came in and said she'd had one of those moments at home one day where she said she literally woke up one morning and said to herself, okay, enough is enough. That's it. Now it's going to change. And she did that for herself. She didn't need coaching or training or anything else. But I think what happens then for other people is those moments don't happen. We've got things going through our mind for a long time, and what coaching or other interventions can do is they speed up that process.
Yeah, I think that sort of moment when you have to make a big decision like that, sometimes it's just sort of forced upon you. And actually, if you'd have been through a process whereby you could have got to that point a little earlier, in your own way or with help, then, it would be a better point, and that pivot would feel an awful lot better.
Yes.
And, the next day you'd sort of almost be starting to walk before you, rather than having to fall over the edge and start all over again.
Yeah, and I think you talked about sort of senior managers and owners, and quite often it can be a very lonely existence, because we quite often don't have people within our organisation that we can share some of those thoughts with. And so issues can go round and round in our mind for weeks, if not months.
Yeah. One thing I was wondering is that it's interesting you mentioned light bulb moment. Of course, progress, in people fulfilling all their capabilities, it's not an even thing. You might not progress at all for a while, and then suddenly you have your light bulb moments. It must be quite frustrating for you, though, in terms of working with clients, because what about the client who says, what's the ROI in coaching and mentoring? Because it's a very difficult thing to show, particularly if it's uneven.
Yes. And I think, again, in many ways, the reason for me working with senior people, particularly owners and directors who ultimately they're signing the cheque, it's their investment, to some extent, as long as they can see or particularly feel the benefit, then that's the most important thing, because a lot of the gain comes from how individuals feel as a result, so that they can, again, this kind of unburdening of, you talked earlier on about stresses and strains, and we get overwhelmed with issues, that type of thing. So quite often it is a very physical feeling that people are struggling with.
I can imagine, and it takes a while for that sort of physical feeling to turn into productivity. And productivity at a management level isn't always easy to measure. So,
but again, it can be.
Yeah.
I remember a number of years ago, a chap come in who was a very big guy, came in with his leather jacket on, he'd come in on his motorbike, and he was owner of a business. Business was really struggling because he'd stopped making decisions. And he was so fearful of making the wrong decision that he wasn't making decisions. Yeah. And that was having an effect on his staff, on his customers, and who'd stopped ordering and things like that. And he said it felt like he got the weight of the world on his shoulders. And looking at him, his shoulders were kind of rounded and hunched, and it almost looked like he was carrying all this weight.
Manifesting physically.
And that, within probably an hour of our conversation, once we understood that was the issue, he managed to get his head round this, kind of dealing with the fear, and he walked out. I swear he walked out a completely different guy. 2
inches taller.
And he started making decisions almost from that day. So if the circumstances are right, then it is possible for the change and the benefits of that change to happen very quickly.
Now we talked we've been ROI. One of the things that went, over the last sort of few years when budgets are tight, one of the first things to go is training, or coaching, or investment. Mm-hmm. I have to say, it's something that I always sort of think is a mistake. But how easy is it to help a company understand the value and therefore sort of fork out the cost up front? You talked about your chap there. Business is tricky. And we're then asking him to spend some more money to hopefully get it on track. How do you overcome that problem?
Yeah. Well, I think certainly in that case, it was almost too late, because the business was suffering so badly that it was almost the bank, I think, that told him he had to go and get some help.
Right.
Right. And so, unquestionably, there are a number of cases where we leave it too late, and again, sort of physical problems and health issues and stresses and things like that. Yeah. But I think for me, it's when times are tight, it almost makes it more important to make sure that the staff that you have got, you're getting the very best out of them, that they're being well looked after, that they're performing as well as they can. And I think the one thing about coaching is that it is very focused. So it focuses on the issues that you're having, and it addresses them, and hopefully you can then implement those very quickly.
So how do you charge for your time? How do you charge?
With ours, it's, I guess with most coaches, they'll charge by the hour. For us, we have a fixed price for every project. So we sit down with the client at the very beginning to understand what the issues are and what they want. So at that stage, there's no charge and there's no commitment. So it's partly an opportunity for them to meet me and for me to meet them, and also to decide whether I actually want them as a client, because if I don't think they're really committed, there's really no point at that stage. Yeah. But once we understood where they're at, what it is they're trying to achieve, then we can decide how long we think we would need to work together. And then that's a fixed fee for a particular period of time.
So that's quite useful, so people know what they're in for, and that really helps, particularly small businesses, doesn't it?
And I think then they're not always looking at their watch thinking, how much is this conversation costing me?
Being with a lawyer or something. Now, you've talked about individual solutions for individual people. So my last question is completely irrelevant, but I'm going to ask it anyway. It's because I'm like that. If there was one small piece of advice that you could give sort of generally to businesses for 2014, what would it be?
I think the one thing that for me is that there's hope. No matter where you are now, there are lots of people and businesses in a worse state than you might think. And to some extent, again, we talk about what are the government doing enough, the state of the economy and things like that. Ultimately, if there's something we want, it's down to us to get out there and make it happen. And so put aside there are lots of excuses and lots of reasons out there for us not to do things. But if we stop doing things, we'll never get the things that we do want. So
I'm so glad I asked that question. That's fantastic.
That is a wonderful, positive note on which
we love positivity.
On which to end there. So.
Thank you so much.
You're
You're going to
welcome.
stay and listen to some of the clips from the businesses that are succeeding and have a sort of chat about those. So thank you very, very much. Would you like to just tell us your website or how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so my name is Neil Kirby. The website is www.redrubberball.co.uk. And take a look on there. My contact details are there, and by all means, either drop me a line.
And go and have a look at that book, everybody, because it is such a fabulously inspirational book. So if you are feeling slightly out of hope at the moment, go and buy the book and then have a look at the website.
Fantastic.
So thanks very much, Neil.
You're welcome.
Thinking of selling your car? Wondering how much it's worth? Want instant payment? Visit thecarBuyingShop.com. Because with the Car Buying Shop, we're that confident in our prices that we'll even come to you. So, to arrange a home visit or to get a quote, visit thecarBuyingShop.com. The Car Buying Shop, available 7 days a week. That's thecarBuyingShop.com.
Hi, I'm Kathy Weston.
And I'm Lydia El-Khoury.
Join us every Thursday evening on The Parent Show for expert interviews, local information about caring for children in West Hearts,
and a What's On guide you just can't afford to miss. We're here every Thursday between 8 and 9 p.m. on Radio Verulam 92.6 FM.
Don't forget to tune in.
You're listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. We're the voice of the local business community on 92.6 FM and on radioverulam.com.
Well, I said it was a very special show for January. The big issue for us is what will make your business bulletproof in 2014. What's in the DNA of the best operators? We're looking now at all the magic ingredients by talking to those who know and those in the studio who know. Roma's come back along with Neil, who's still here, and of course the stars of the RVTheBusiness Awards, which was held at the end of last year. And so we're on the basis that what better way to prepare for the end to listening to those who actually did the business in 2013. We wanted to actually look at the whole thing in a number of areas. And the first area that we've picked about is about investing in people. The big employer, for example, a chap like Damien Ellis from Blue Arrows, which is obviously a recruitment business, and he started by telling Vicky Scott all about the people dimension.
So it's all about the people.
It's about how they engage the people. Obviously, in a time of austerity, companies can't always reward staff with financial incentives. So there are plenty of other incentives that can be offered to the staff, such as other days out and things. And innovative companies that are thinking in the right direction about managing their staff and the welfare of the staff has shown great dividends in what we've found with the results from the businesses that we've had in the HR and sports category.
So it really makes a very, very clear difference. How you treat your staff, enables you to keep the best staff, presumably.
It does.
Keep staff motivated.
It does, and you know, from what we found is that the top three companies in the category that we were judging had a very low attrition rate for 2013. And that was quite evident that happy people don't move, they're more productive. And I think what you alluded to going into next year, I think it's going to be businesses definitely growing. 2013 we've seen quite a high increase in our business, and the companies that we're dealing with as well, demand is increasing, and obviously the quality of the staff is going to be paramount to how successful those companies are going to be in 2014.
So what we do know when times get tough is one of the first things that gets knocked on the head is training.
Yes.
Is that something that you really are seeing is coming back now there's a little bit more positivity in the air?
I think, yes. I talk from experience with Blue Arrow, as a business, we've identified, historically, we have a training program that was an induction program, and then there wasn't a specific follow-up program. In the last 2 years, we've invested heavily in a training, an induction program based on performance for the staff, which new positions that staff go into. There are specific trainings for each individual role, so the personal development of each team member within Blue Arrow, there will be a training package available for that particular role.
So it's important, it's
Absolutely.
very important.
It's essential, yeah.
And what about what's on the horizon for 2014? What would you be recommending to businesses to think about coming into this new year?
I would, apprenticeships, very important, and the engagement of the young workforce, I think, is critical for moving forward. We have a lot of very good, experienced people who are coming up to retirement age, and there needs to be a natural progression of people with the skills to be learned in a variety of key areas that are lacking at the moment.
Do you think there are some pockets of shortage of skilled work?
There are.
Like what?
Catering in chef, for example, there is a national shortage of quality chefs, drivers, and specific IT and accountancy positions. There is a shortage, but people need to be, obviously the training needs to come through. We do a lot of work with the colleges with regards to bringing people in and developing them, and I think apprenticeships and work experience programs are essential to engage the young workforce to increase that ethic, that work ethic.
Excellent, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
That was Damien Ellis from Blue Arrow, which is obviously a recruitment business. Some interesting views there, Roma.
Very interesting. I mean, the people agenda, as it's often referred to, is always a hot topic. And I think more than ever, and that came out in the interview, we're not just talking about bringing young people, young blood, new blood. We're talking at every end of the scale. And he was talking there briefly also about the older generation and how they're working. One of the things I've seen a lot of is that more experienced, older workforce tend to be around in the advisory community a lot. A lot of consultants out there. So
sort of the wisdom of grey hairs, maybe.
Indeed, I think it's recognised.
Yes.
Yay.
Neil, what do you think?
That's good news for me. See the colour of mine.
Me too.
No, I think he's absolutely right, and I was interested with some of his comments about communicating to staff in terms of keeping them informed in what your plans are, your priorities, letting them know how the organisation's doing. I think for me, one of the other things that I've noticed particularly recently is ensuring that staff can see the worth and the value in what they're doing, either in their day-to-day work with customers and clients, or also, I think, increasingly with things like community projects and charity events. So where organisations get involved in those, and you can bring staff together to get involved and either raising money or giving time. And quite often staff really feel, if they can feel that their organisation is really doing something worthwhile, it really ties them to the organisation and help them perform better.
Yeah, it's interesting actually. This week I was in the city with one of my clients, and they recently entered the top 100 UK companies to work for. And one of the things that you get is feedback. And one of the key things that came back, which they hadn't anticipated, was exactly this issue. At all levels, staff feeling that they really wanted to be engaged with where the business is going and have a say in the context of strategy of the organisation, which was quite interesting.
It wasn't, and Damien sort of put it in a nutshell. 4 words: happy people don't move.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was, it's simple, but sometimes the simplest things are the truth. I mean, picking up on your point, Neil, you're talking about people sort of getting involved in the community. It's like sometimes it's also great for career development as well, because you go and try something in a different discipline, maybe in a non-profit area where you've been used to the commercial sector, and actually you find you have to pull different levers to actually make things work.
And I think with training quite often there's the difficulty is we can go along, we can learn some new skills, but we then don't have the opportunity to actually practice it and get good at it. And where those kind of community or charity projects, as you say, are fantastic, is that you really get the hands-on expertise that is equally transferable back into the workplace.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll play another clip now. I mean, we've had the big business there, but what about the smaller business? I mean, what is it that's in the DNA of a smaller business that makes it really work?
So I'm here now with Helen Wilson and Adam Wilson from Charles Wilson Carpets Limited. And Charles Wilson Carpets have been nominated for 2 awards this evening for customer service and also for the Small Business Award. Helen, can we start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about the organisation?
Yes, we've been going since 1972. It's Adam's parents that set up the business originally, and so we're now second generation trying to move the business along. Busy family business at the moment, I'm pleased to say.
And do you think that's kind of connected with the Small Business Award? Do you think it makes it easier, being a smaller business, to be able to have that focus rather than sort of larger, sort of multinational organisations that can sometimes lose that customer focus?
I would hope so, yeah, I would. A lot of our customers, they ask for the same fitters that they've always had, and that makes it a bit of a nicer connection that you have with them.
Yeah. And it's so important, I think, these days, isn't it, to have that service and to have that personal contact and to that. Well, I wish you all the best for tonight. Have lots of luck and have a great evening. Thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, thanks.
And that interview was by Emma Lovell, who's a newbie on Radio Verulam. A very big welcome to you on the Radio Verulam team. Interesting views again. I mean, that was shorter and sweeter, but nonetheless, some interesting thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, this idea of being customer friendly, it sounds really obvious, doesn't it? But quite often there's a danger that gets forgotten. I think in a smaller business, particularly where you've got 1 to 5 people, it's almost easier to remember that importance. As a company gets larger, the danger is that, with the deepest of respect, your employees often are there to earn money to pay a mortgage or go on holiday or whatever it may be, and their focus isn't necessarily on ensuring they're offering the best possible service. Don't know your thoughts, Neil?
Yeah, no, I think you're right, because I think with a small organisation, the owner is much more closely involved, but also staff see that what they do has a big difference on the organisation. So if they deliver a good service to their client, their customer, they know what effect that's having. Whereas I think that can sometimes get lost within a big organisation where it's just another client and it's just a number.
Yeah. I mean, we've had some great examples of exactly this thing, haven't we, over the last year, where we've interviewed various small business owners. And one of the things that's come out very strongly is the important focus on customer service and how they translate that.
Exactly. And probably customer service is much easier to deliver within a small business. I mean, in many respects, small can be beautiful, because you actually know a lot of the customers and so on. So it's simpler, and maybe it's tougher for big businesses to actually, sort of deliver on those sorts of models. We've all sort of been stuck in the call centre hell, where we've been dealing with a big corporate. But the personal touch, for a small business, in that. The DNA of a small business really can be that personal touch. Okay, maybe their prices have to be higher or something, but nevertheless, people will pay for good.
Yeah,
and I think certainly with a small organisation, decision making tends to happen much more quickly. Because the right people are involved in with the customer. Yeah. Whereas the bigger organisation, quite often you've got chains of command that have to go through and lines of reporting, and that slows the whole process down, which actually doesn't necessarily help the customer.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, we've done big and small businesses. Straight after these messages, we'll come back with leadership.
The Solid Gold Music Show on Radio Verulam is with you on Saturday mornings between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. Join Derek Staines and Stephen Hall as they flash you back, value discs, have a brief biog and interview the stars. We also allow SJH to ramble down nostalgia lane. It's all on the Premier Oldies Show here on 92.6 FM. The Solid Gold Music Show, sponsored by Dock Guard of Luton.
If you want to get in touch with the business on Radio Verulam, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.
Welcome back to The Business. We're looking at how to bulletproof your business in 2014. I'm here with Roma Bhowmick and Neil Kirby from the Red Rubber Ball company. We're moving on to inspirational leadership. The inspirational leader is such an important part of an organisation. We've talked about happy people don't move, and a lot of that is down to inspirational leaders. And and I can see this is sort of into Neil's sort of specialist subject area at the moment. And we bumped into a leader, and but first of all, one of his happy employees.
Okay, so I'm here with Carleen Holton, marketing assistant from PG Mutual, and her chief executive has been nominated as Business Person of the Year. What's the sort of qualities that your chief exec has that's made the nomination?
He's rebranded the company and the organisation. We've had record achievement in many parts of the business. We've had new staff come on. He's just been fantastic. Just turned it all around. Someone that's obviously career driven, wants to make the business a success.
And it sounds like that really motivates you then in your own kind of role within the organisation as well.
Yeah, absolutely. If it wasn't for Mike, we wouldn't. No, I think none of us would have the motivation that we have now in any of the sectors, because we just feel a bit deflated.
Thank you very much. Have a great night. Thank you. Bye bye. Okay, so I'm now privileged to be speaking with Mike Perry, who is the Chief Executive from PG Mutual, after we've spoken to Carleen. Mike, we've heard lots about you, and it's great to meet you in person. So just tell us a little bit about the company as you see it.
First of all, thank you very much for that. The company itself, we specialise in income protection for professional people. We primarily started with the pharmacy group, but over the last 2 years we've expanded that out to all professionals. And to be here tonight is amazing. The reason was that I didn't know I'd been nominated. And really the success of the business has been down to 2 years. It's involved the team as much as possible. Tell them about the strategy, how we're going to take the business forward together. Keep them updated with what we're doing, how we're doing, so they understand fully what their role is in taking the business forward. And I put that down to the success we've had in the last 2 years.
Sounds really important, I think, for a team to feel included. Do you find your own sort of solace? Where do you get your sort of drive from?
Well, I think networking is really important. I think knowing what your peer group is doing, and that really only comes from experience and making mistakes. But I think one of the key things is, if you are trying to drive a business forward, to accept at some stage you will make mistakes. What I try and do is separate work from business. That can be difficult to do. But again, I think it's trying to get that fine line really between involving the team, and it's just making sure that gap's just about right.
Yeah, well, certainly having met some of your team this evening, it seems like there's a real good kind of dynamics, really good relationship. Yeah. Is there any advice you can give to other local businesses that might want to aspire to where you've got your business to?
I think from my point of view, everybody generally talks about sales as the first place to start. I think really my advice would be to look at what your marketing strategy is going to be. Work out the budget you're going to spend on that, don't overspend, and really stay focused. It's very easy sometimes to be drifted away from that, but you've got to remind yourself constantly where you're trying to get to and how you're doing it, and involve the team as much as possible, because I think your best asset is your people, and generally be prepared to listen to them.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. That's great.
Thanks.
Well, that was Motivator Mike. Mike Perry from I've just lost the name. Sorry, from PG Mutual. Thank you. No, he was already. You just kind of got that sort of energy coming through the airwaves there, weren't you, Roma? So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, leadership's something that. How many times do you hear the mantra, it's really important to be an inspirational leader? Yeah. And then you go on training courses about how to be an inspirational leader, and you go to seminars on inspirational leadership. But as was discussed there, what does it actually mean? And, personally, I think it's very much about someone who's able to not just motivate and inspire, but allow themselves to hand over the reins to their people, give them the tools to be able to run the organisation just as successfully as they do. Really input. Neil?
I think so, because again, there's we look at inspiration and we think that means you have to be kind of a flamboyant character and the life and soul of the party, that sort of thing, which I don't think is necessary at all. But I think it is important that, again, the whole notion is that you've got to lead by example. Mm-hmm. So what you say, what you expect of other people, I think as a leader you have to set the tone. So you've got to do that yourself. So whether it be simple things like, I don't know, asking all your staff to complete their timesheets by Friday night, if that's what's expected of everybody else, then you have to set the tone and make sure that you you do that yourself, and so that they can follow. So I think because from that people get the respect of you, and from that comes the inspiration. If you've got the passion for what you're doing, so you're committed either to the business or to your customers, then again your staff will feed on that, and then they will hopefully be as passionate as you will.
Yeah, I mean, it all comes down to sort of fairly simple things with leadership. It's about making that emotional appeal, the emotional connection. People talk about hearts and minds and so on, but if people understand it in simple terms and can understand exactly what they're doing. I mean, somebody once said to me, the one thing that's always stuck in my mind is they said, I've often seen a bad organisation led by a good leader, perhaps in the process of restructuring or change. They said, but they've never seen a good organisation led by a bad leader. And that stuck in my mind as a sort of, as a bit of a mantra. And if you look at them, you just don't. You don't see good organisations led by bad people. Or maybe they might be living under the sort of somebody else's past glories, but it will soon disintegrate if the leader hasn't got it. So it couldn't really be kind of more important, really. Okay, we're going to talk about now what I've sort of termed everlasting employability. Looking at it from the employee's point of view, particularly young employees, about what they see and what they look for in businesses. And we talked to Sean Scully of Oaklands College, which is, of course, one of the further education colleges in St Albans.
We provide employability courses, CV writing. We have our own careers and guidance advisors who are part of our student advice team who work with students. They're available at front desks at all receptions, so students can come and talk to them about qualifications, UCAS, entry. They can talk about jobs in the industry. We've also done an awful lot more in terms of via our apprenticeship and business teams, or enterprise team, in terms of building relationships with local employers.
And how do you sort of almost assess whether a local employer is a suitable place for a student to go to? What do you tell students to look for in employers?
Well, the first thing that we all start off is with the student themselves. We start off with the student about their aspirations, their ambitions, and also their skill set. And a big part of that is what they want to do, whether they're a practical type of student that wants to do motor vehicle, carpentry, brickwork, or one of our vocational courses, or whether they're a student that wants to do business or ICT. And then because we have great relationships with local businesses, we work with hundreds of businesses around Hertfordshire, we provide apprentices for businesses, we provide a work experience. And so in terms of assessing an employer would approach us and would become known to us about what they need, i.e. are they looking for a business admin apprentice, are they looking for a carpentry apprentice, and then we would, obviously, students come to us all the time that say they want to do an electrical course, and what we try and do is match the student with the appropriate job. There's lots of things to consider, i.e. is that company the right place for the student in terms of where they travel to, whether there's the right opportunities. The practicalities, absolutely. It's really important, because to retain a student in a job, a 16, 17-year-old, you've got to consider all aspects around it, the travel time, the pay, the costs. We financially support our students where it's required.
How do you encourage businesses to come to you to find employees?
Well, nights like tonight is one part of what we do. We sponsor the Business Awards, which raises the profile of the college. We're not just a college that looks at progressing students into university, but a large amount of ours progress into employment. So we're members of the Chambers of Commerce. We are actively in the business community. Right. We run a series of community events. We do all the traditional forms of marketing to businesses.
So if a business did want to have some bright young things coming along, do you have bright older things as well?
We have. A great thing about what we do at Oaklands College is we have our own 16 to 18 provision that's very important to us, but we're also very well known for our adult courses.
Right.
Because, at the moment, the age of the apprentices that we've got at the moment that are within the college, the youngest apprentice we have is 16, and we actually have somebody who's 63 years of age.
Fantastic. That's
and
really, really
it's not about, it's all about what the individual wants to do, and there's no limit to an age of an apprentice.
Right.
Because ultimately it's about what that person wants to do and whether there's an appropriate role for them in the organisation, because it has to be linked to training.
Right. So do you help companies figure out a training programme for the apprentices?
Any business that approaches us will conduct an assessment with the business to find out what the business needs. So, for example, if there's a business that's moving into electrical engineering sector, we will talk to that business about what type of people you want. Is it front counter staff you need, business admin staff, or is it literally engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, civil engineers?
So that's a really, really good message for Hertfordshire businesses.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of help out there. There's a lot of support for the apprenticeship programme. They're not on their own, that you can help them not only find the apprentice, but also to help train them and get the right one.
And the other thing is we have a relationship throughout the time with the apprentices with the organisation, where we are ongoing and training and assessing the young person or the adult and making sure that they're meeting the needs of the company. And we can name any number of organisations where that person will then progress as an employee within the company themselves. It's a fantastic. The apprenticeship scheme is a fantastic scheme.
I love the way the sound like the party was really starting to build towards the end of that one. There's lots of other voices going on there. Roma, some interesting points again. So.
Again, absolutely. I mean, as you know, part-time, I also work at the University of Hertfordshire, and one of the things that I'm going to be leading on this semester is an employability programme aimed at exactly the kind of thing that that guy was just talking about, the similar scheme to Oaklands College, only we won't be looking at apprenticeships. The whole idea of making graduates more employable or college leavers more employable is an interesting one, because is it something you can actually train them to be, or is it something that needs to be developed over time? Is it common sense? I don't know. Am I being too controversial, Neil?
Well, no, I think, can it be trained? I think it comes certainly through experience, and whether we regard that as training or something different. But I think, therefore, businesses potentially have a huge role to play. And I would certainly encourage any business in the area to contact their local colleges or schools, the university, to get involved. And it may be through things like apprenticeships. We talked earlier on about training for staff, but also in terms of kind of giving back to those schools, as you say, to help develop some of the students, but also to benefit your own staff as well with kind of team building type exercises. So no, I would thoroughly encourage every business to engage with their local colleges.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's one final area that we could to look at. We've talked about being close to the customer when we were talking about Wilson Carpets, but customer relationship management, and obviously that's a sort of specialist area, but very, very important. With a lot of technology and software these days sort of developing, it's an area where perhaps a business could make a real difference. And we spoke to Matthew Day from CRM Superstars.
Okay, so I'm here with Matthew Day, the owner of CRM Superstars, who have been nominated tonight for Best New Business. So Matthew, can you tell us a little bit about your organisation?
Yeah, so CRM Superstars, I started the business in January last year, and initially just started off myself, going out helping local businesses implement customer relationship management systems. And over the past 18 months or so, we've gradually grown, taken on some premises, taken on a team of staff to help and support me in growing the business. And we're really seeing going from strength to strength. So, we really feel as though we can bring benefits to kind of small, medium-sized businesses in the area.
Wow, that sounds great, and I love the name of your company as well. So what is it that kind of gets you up in the morning? What really motivates you to do as well as you've done?
Well, I think it's being able to make a difference and understand some of the challenges that they're facing, typically around the way that they know that they're missing out on opportunities, and they just need some help and guidance into identifying what those opportunities are, and give them advice and practical tools on how they can make better use of their data in their business.
Just starting out as you were, just over a year ago, kind of any advice that you might be giving them?
Yeah, so we often come up against sort of questions where we ask businesses why they're not using CRM, and they say, "Oh, I'm too small. There's only me, or there's only a handful of people in the business." I certainly couldn't have got to where I am today by having a good system in place. So I would say anybody who's starting up a business or has a young and vibrant business, it's never too early to whether getting advice from companies like ourselves, but do something. Make sure you've got a system to be able to manage it.
Thank you very much, Matthew, for your time, and have a great evening. Good luck with the awards.
Thanks very much. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Thanks.
That was Matthew Day from CRM Superstars. Really interesting stuff, I think. Really being able to make a difference, he said. That was fascinating, and never too small to use CRM. Just various points he made.
I mean, you don't have to have anything particularly sophisticated. I think there's a nervousness sometimes around CRM systems, but I think it's really important to keep a detailed profile on your customers. The more you know about them, the more you can talk to them about what they have done historically with you, where they might be going in future. It's back to what we talked about at the top of the hour in terms of customer service.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. And particularly with your existing customers or clients and those contacts that you're looking to develop. Because for me, the key seems to be consistent, and to keep contacting them and keep putting in reminders so that you follow up those calls. Again, the number of times that we've been approached of organisations who put in time and effort to try and get our business and then have just not followed up the call or not followed up a letter and things like that. And it just seems a huge amount of waste. So, no, CRM systems to help you be consistent, I think, is a great idea.
Yeah, that's a great point on which to end it. Well, thank you very much to everybody who was willing to be interviewed by us on the Hearts Business Awards, and also, of course, to Neil Kirby from the Red Rubber Ball Company. And we're going to round up in just a few seconds.
With the business on Radio Verulam, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.
Listening to the last sort of 25 minutes or so has been Vicky Scott. I mean, Vicky, what did you make of some of that? I mean, has it helped us understand about bulletproofing our business?
Oh, I hope it has. It'd be a great shame if it hadn't. I think what we hear time and time again, and it keeps coming back, it's about focus on customers, it's about service to customers, it's about continuity of that service, and it's about recognising what you've got within the business as well that you ought to be looking after, i.e. your staff. And if you get those two things right, if you get understanding your customers right and you get understanding your staff right, then you are well on the way to a successful 2014.
Fantastic. Roma, you got sort of 20 seconds to tell us what you made of it all.
I think it was all very interesting. No, lots and lots to learn from tonight, as ever. And as you say, it was great to have so many hot tips.
Yeah, lots of great tips. Thanks again to the people from the Hearts Business Award and to Neil Kirby from the Red Rubber Ball Company, and of course to Roma, Bhowmick and Vicky Scott. It's been a really interesting, I think, a really good sort of kick-off for the start of the year. We'll be back again next Sunday at 8 o'clock. So until then, all that's to be said is Happy New Year. May we be the last people to wish you Happy New Year, and hope your business goes well in the coming year.
You've been listening to The Business on Radio Verulam. If there's anything in the show you want to talk to us about, phone us on 01727 839 926 or email thebusiness@radioverulam.com.